Hello crafters and welcome back to the This Calls for Confetti YouTube channel. My name is Deepa from Designs by D and I'm so happy you're joining me today. Today we are going to do some Halloween crafting. I know we're still in August, but we are preparing for fall and there was just a small fall release that came out, so I hope that you were able to check that out in the store. Today we are going to be working with the Halloween Past Ephemera pack. This one is really fun because you've got like four different Halloween scenes, and I'm just going to be using small sections from them along with the pin and plan cover die and the colorfully creepy confetti mix. And then I'm going to add some features from the Wicked Webs die set, including the sentiment. So let's go ahead and get started on this fun thing. Now, the other thing that I wanted to mention is I'm using some of my favorite products too, which is the Lattice Luxe hot plate, and then the Mod Lattice cover plate die, which are absolutely gorgeous. And I just wanted to mix them into my design for some fun. I've started out with the pin and plan die, and I cut that out 6 times out of black cardstock. Separately, I also cut it out of some white cardstock, and I'm also going to be foiling a sheet of white cardstock with some of this really iridescent foil. It's a really fun colored foil. It just shines. Can see that rainbow color. I'm going to use the Lattice Luxe foil plate to foil that out, and you can just see it's just a hint of that white iridescent color, but I'm going to be adding some ink to this to give it some extra oomph. Now, before I do that, I will use the pin and plan die to cut these out as well. I'll keep those aside along with the white pieces that I cut out of the white cardstock. And I always like to keep these extra frames inside the back of the packaging if I'm not going to be using it on my current project. I can always use it on something else. So the next thing I'm doing is I'm cutting out that mod lattice. It is so pretty. I think it has just like a nice stained glass kind of look. So I just cut it out of some black and I will use it on one of my pin and plan sections there. Before I do that, I am grabbing some of the rectangles from that pin and plan die set, the white ones that we cut out, along with the ones that I have foiled, and I'm going to just be adding some inks. And you'll notice that the ink colors that I've chosen match the colorfully creepy confetti mix, and that was done on purpose because I really love that fun color scheme that they have going on in that confetti mix. So I've got some purple, some pink, orange, and like a vibrant kind of ocean colored blue. So I'm going to go ahead and add those inks to these white pieces, including the ones that we foiled. And you can see we've got a resist technique going on here with that foiled piece. So the part that was foiled shows up, that beautiful Lattice Luxe design on top of that ink blended background, which is really fun, I think. So the next step is to create some fun shaker windows. So I have a lot going on in this pin and plan card here. We've got some just plain ink blending. We've got emboss resist. I'm going to put that other mod lattice die cut on top of one of the rectangles. I've got the shaker bit here. So it's a ton of different techniques all in one. It's super duper fun, and I love how it turns out in the end, and I hope you do too. So we are creating 2 smaller shaker windows here. So all I'm doing is I'm grabbing This Calls for Confetti foilable acetate sheets, and I'm just attaching them to 2 of the rectangles here. Now I recommend having your overhanging bits overhanging off the outer edges of your die because it's just easier to cut it off of your die cut piece here. The inner edges here, was able to cut them off as well, but it is a little more finicky. So I've gone ahead and done that. So literally I just glued it to the acetate and cut off the overhanging bit. So I have 2 windows there ready to go. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab that Halloween Past Ephemera, and I'm just going to find some sections of it that I'm going to add to 2 more of the rectangles here. I think this lantern section is really fun. So I am just actually tracing the rectangle, and I'm just going to cut just a little bit outside of those trace lines so that I can attach it to the pin and plan frame there. So I'll do that for 2 of these rectangles here to add a bit of variation. Now you could, if you have, I will put in the supplies list down below The set where it actually has the rectangle dies to cut these out, I actually don't have them, which is why I'm doing this whole tracing technique. But those dies really come in handy and make this portion of making this card much easier. You could just actually cut these sections out using those dies, and then all you have to do is like inlay them, like we're going to do for the rest of the sections on here. So I've gone ahead and I've added those two sections from the Halloween Pass Ephemera. Now, as I mentioned, I am going to be attaching this mod lattice to one of these rectangles. I did want to incorporate some of my favorite products in this design. And as I mentioned, the Lattice Luxe and this mod lattice. I love these intricate designs, as you can probably tell. They look really nice. So I've gone ahead and attached it to this one section, and I'm cutting off the overhanging bits here, which I think gives it a really fun look, especially against that ink blended background. Looks really pretty. And then I'm going to move on to some of the little bits that are going to just add some extra Halloween features to this card. I've got the spider here from the webs, the Wicked Webs die set, and then I've also got this little cobweb here. So I've cut that out of some black glitter cardstock. I'll put that to the side for now. And I'll start on assembling my shaker compartments. So that is why I cut out 6 of the pin and plan die cuts. I'm going to layer those together and just glue those all together. I'm not going to show you the entire process of gluing those together because it's really pretty much just adding glue and sticking them together. And you can see it creates the wells of the shaker, right? So that really gives it a little bit of lift. It gives me my shaker wells and I'm ready to go. So you'll notice the top layer where we added those inserted the bits from the ephemera pack and the window. I've kind of kept that one separate. I just attached the other 5 to create the well. I'm going to attach this to my card base. Now keep in mind the pin and plan die set is exactly A2 size, so it's going to cover that entire card base, which is 5.5 by 4.25. It's a side folding white card base. Now that I've got that on there and I've got the wells that I desire, I'm grabbing my anti-static tool here and I'm going to go ahead and just kind of add it to the rectangle so that my shaker bits don't get stuck to the edges. Next thing I'm going to do is add my shaker bits. Now, keep in mind that this confetti mix, it has a lot of large and small pieces. So you kind of have to sift through it a little bit to add the bits that you want. So I didn't want too many of those orange spider webs. I just wanted a couple in there. And also even those bats and the ghosts, they take up a lot of space. So I did make sure that I just added the amount that I wanted along with all of the other little bits to add those colors that we used as kind of like our color scheme for this card. So I've added what I wanted in my wells. You can see I have some extra confetti pieces there just on the side, which is what I took out. I'm going to go ahead now and add my top layer, which is the one with the acetate windows and the ephemera. And that is going to close off our shaker compartment. So make sure you glue this down tight, just especially around those shaker elements there. And then once it's completely dry, just give it a test, shake it around, and make sure that nothing is falling out. And that pretty much completes the ephemera portion and the shaker bits of the pin and plan card we have going here. The next thing we're going to do is some inlay. Very, very simple. We're just grabbing some foam adhesive. Now keep in mind, this has some lift because we created those shaker compartments. So this is why I'm adding the foam squares, because it's going to lift up those pieces so they don't kind of sink in. But if you wanted to have that look, you could probably do that too if you wanted. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So I've gone ahead and I've added the extra rectangles that we've ink blended, foiled, and added the die cut piece to. And now I'm going to add that one cobweb that we cut out of the black glitter cardstock. And my next task is going to be those smaller rectangles on the top left there. So I've got some smaller foam squares which actually fit perfectly in here, so it works out perfectly for me. If you don't have foam squares small enough, just cut down the ones that you have and you can fit them in there. I'm going to go ahead and add these smaller rectangles. You'll notice I also use the smaller rectangles that were foiled that have that emboss resist look. So I'm going to go ahead and add these. And again, they're in all of the different colors of those shaker bits, which I think is a really fun color scheme for Halloween. So I'll go ahead and add these in, making sure not to put two of the same color beside each other so that we've got some variation in color going here. I did have one extra rectangle, which I forgot. I did end up just kind of ink blending that with the blue on the side and adding that in the end here. And then the next step is going to be our sentiment. So we are using the Wicked Web's Happy Halloween sentiment here. You get a shadow die, and then you also get the main sentiment die. Now, I do want to mention that the die for the shadow, really easy, just cut it out. I use some black cardstock here. And same thing, it's easy to cut out the actual Happy Halloween sentiment. However, they are very intricate, right? They're really thin. So you will need a tool to kind of push out the letters after you've cut them. I think part of the reason why mine took a little bit just to get out of the die was because I use this specialty cardstock here. So it really depends on the cardstock you're using as well. But if you are having some issues, one little trick that I wanted to mention is you can use dryer sheets. So just apply the dryer sheet lightly to your die cut before you cut it out, and those pieces should pop out by themselves. You shouldn't have to kind of poke them out as much as I've had to here. So I will mention that, and that is not any issue to do with the die. That is just because the die has such a beautiful thin sentiment. It has a beautiful thin font, which is, I think, really pretty. So I'm glad that it has this, but I definitely recommend using it with a dryer sheet so that they pop out a little easier for you. I'm using my tweezers here so that I can add glue to them because remember, they are very thin. And then having a glue bottle, liquid glue with a fine tip, really comes in handy as well for this. So I've gone ahead and I've attached the sentiment to the shadow die for both the Happy and Halloween. I've just shown you the Halloween here. And then all I have to do is kind of add these sentiment bits to the card. So I'm going to go ahead and add that and strategically in places where I don't want to cover up certain things. And then the final portion of this card is that beautiful little spider. I'm going to attach him with a foam square as well and just kind of have him on this ink blended orange and blue piece kind of overhanging on the shaker bit as well. So that kind of finishes up this card here. You can always test out the shaker. It's a lot of fun. My kids had a lot of fun shaking this one around. And that's basically our final card for today. So I hope that you like this design and you'll give it a try. As I mentioned before, everything used in this video has been linked down in the description below, and you can find it in the TCFC store. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys again next time. Bye.